Joe Biden and alleged election interference.
Taylor spent hours in a closed session with House committees engaged in an impeachment inquiry. In testimony obtained by Fox News, Taylor also said he was told by the ambassador to the EU that President Trump was adamant that Ukrainian president make a public statement about investigating former Vice President Joe Biden in the 2016 election. A statement from the White House press secretary calls the testimony more triple hearsay and selective leaks from Democrats' politically motivated secretive hearings.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. An anonymous writer described as a senior Trump administration official has written a book called A Warning.
The publisher is promising blood, guts, and the most revealing look at President Trump behind the scenes that exists to date.
Fox's Jillian Turner, the author who claims to be part of the resistance, caused a firestorm last year by writing an op-ed for the New York Times. The book is slated for release on November 19th. No comment yet from the White House. Police in Birmingham, Alabama, believe they found the remains of a 3-year-old kidnapped 11 days ago at a birthday party. Mayor Randall Woodfin.
I ask one thing of this community: not to take sides, not to finger point, but if there is any finger pointing to do, it's only at the perpetrator who would kidnap an innocent 3-year-old.
Police say they have 2 suspects in custody and plan to charge them with kidnapping, murder of Camille Cupcake McKinney. America's listening to Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Did you know that home loan rates have plunged again? Would you like to take advantage of these lower rates to help lower your monthly payments? Refinancing doesn't have to be for another 30 years. It can be for 10, 15, or 20 years. It's up to you. Reduce your monthly payments. Pay off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Credit conditions apply.
The Washington Nationals shine in Game 1 of the World Series.
That's well hit into left field, back and off the wall. 1 run scores. Here comes Rendon. He'll score 2.
Joe Buck there on Fox. Juan Soto with the 2 RBI double to cap off a 3-run 5th inning for the Nationals. Soto, a 3-ribby night for him as the Nationals hang on to beat the Houston Astros 5-4 in World Series Game 1. It's the first win for a Washington baseball team in the World Series since 1933. Game 2 of the Fall Classic coming up Wednesday in Houston. Steven Strasburg on the mound for the Nats with Justin Verlander going for the Astros. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
A former guidance counselor at an Indiana high school takes legal action after being fired over her same-sex marriage.
Shelley Fitzgerald has filed a federal lawsuit naming the Indianapolis Archdiocese and Roncalli High School. She claims she was discriminated against and faced retaliation due to her sexual orientation. She married her wife in 2014, but had worked at the school for 15 years before being placed on administrative leave last year. She's seeking unspecified damages, including lost wages and emotional distress. The Archdiocese is issuing a statement that the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly recognized that religious schools have a constitutional right to hire leaders who support the school's religious mission. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
Fast-thinking cops averted a tragedy at the World Trade Center in New York City on Tuesday evening. They were able to grab a man who had doused himself in gasoline before he set himself on fire. That man undergoing a psych evaluation. And the former child actress who played Becky Slater on The Wonder Years is in some real-world trouble. A lawsuit claims that Crystal McKellar, who's now a Harvard-trained lawyer, tried to undermine a venture fund that was co-founded by Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel. I'm Carmen Robertson. This is Fox News.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
It's a one-of-a-kind wine fundraiser. Guahan Sustainable Culture presents Wine in the Garden. The Hamamoto Gardens help support food sovereignty, security, and sustainability while sipping wines from around the world, surrounded by 50-some acres of beautiful farm and garden. Tickets are $75 each. Proceeds support education and outreach on how important, easy, and fun sustainable practices can be. Wine in the Garden is on Saturday evening, October 26, starting at 5. For more details, go to our website, gusustainable.org, or call 687-6491.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Good afternoon and welcome to Tall Tales for Wednesday, October 23rd. It's 4 o'clock or 4:06 in the afternoon, and I'm Daryl Taggarty sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in about a month before Thanksgiving, and then we'll give thanks, and we'll be enjoying his perspectives on goings-on around here once again. But in the meantime, I'm here, and I'll be with you until 6 o'clock this evening, taking a look at what's going on in the news today, and also if there's something on your mind, if there's some news that you are hearing and concerned about, by all means, give us a call here at 888-8255. You can also find us on Facebook Live and join us there, make your comments, and I will share them with everyone over the air, right here on The Point. Let's see, I was right there. What happened? I was there. Ah, there we are. Okay, just ringing up on my own PC. I don't have anything on Second Amendment, but it's because there's so many other things going on in the world. I mean, just so many. I guess nobody's thinking about taking away your AR-15 today, so that's not in the news. Or at least they may be thinking about it, but it doesn't rise to the headlines. So I guess that's good news. What we do have are a couple of editorials that I'd like to get to. And there's a bunch of recent stories just over the last 2 days that sort of all melt together. And we'll see if we can tackle that, the issues there that are important to us here on Guam as we move forward together. But right now, let's go ahead and begin our feature, Zami Ikatni. The Pacific Daily News has reprinted a USA Today editorial, which is entitled "Age is Just a Number." And if you want to know what they're talking about, it has to do with Carter Sanders, role models for serving into maturity. Well, they should just go ahead and put Donald Trump in there too. But I guess this Bruce Lowy didn't want to include them in his guest column for USA Today. But it's the opinion piece in the Pacific Daily News, and we'll set that aside and go straight to a local editorial, which is the Guam Daily Post editorial for today. GovGuam needs to revamp its policy on drug abuse. And let's see what riches are in store as we examine today's Guam Daily Post editorial. You may have read it, and you may have walked away with a different impression than I did. That's entirely possible because of the way that it sort of zigs and then zags. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Also, there's an article in the PDN on page 8, which is closely related to this. New drug testing proposal draws concerns again. And it has, it's the back and forth between Senator James Moylan and Rules Chair Senator Regine Bisco-Lee. So here's the editorial from the Guam Daily Post today. In an exchange of press releases Monday, Republican Senator James Moylan and Democratic Senator Regine Bisco-Lee laid out the pros and cons of a legislative resolution Moylan was pushing forward to legislative employees, for legislative employees to go through drug testing before they get listed on the Government of Guam payroll. The executive branch employees are already required to go through pre-employment drug testing based on an executive order that's been in place since 1995. Moylan calls for the Guam legislature via a resolution to adopt all applicable provisions of the Department of Administration's drug-free policy, which requires a drug test before a new employee is hired. Lee had concerns about the original resolution, saying the suggested drug testing is unconstitutional and would violate employees' rights. She's also concerned that employees tested under the program could file costly lawsuits against the legislature. Without splitting hairs on who is right or wrong or who has a better idea, neither senator's stance will meaningfully help address the long-standing broader issue of substance abuse across the government of Guam and how the problem affects the public. We don't need a piecemeal approach. Taxpayers want to see a comprehensive policy. The conversation in the legislature and in the executive and judicial branches should look at enacting a GovGuam-wide law that doesn't differentiate drug testing between the different branches of government or carves out special exemptions for government corporations or branches of government. The discussion should go back to the overall executive branch policy on drug use. The policy is decades old and should be overhauled to keep up with the times. It should also address the new recreational marijuana law. It should cover everyone in the government of Guam payroll, whether they're politically appointed, hired through the civil service merit system, elected by voters, or hired under the autonomous agencies. Working for GovGuam is a privilege, and employees and officials under the GovGuam umbrella should adhere to uniform and strict standards of employment. The new law should establish tough, step-by-step measures of how to deal with employees and officials who are addicted to drugs. There is a safe harbor, quote, safe harbor, in the current executive branch policy, which gives employees a chance to get help when going through drug addiction without getting fired on the first violation. Is this still the same policy GovGuam wants to keep today? And how many strikes should employees and officials be given before they get suspended or fired? There are many ways to improve on what's in place now. What won't help are intermittent press releases that don't address the broader GovGuam-wide problems with substance abuse. There were a number of words that really jumped out at me from this editorial. If I might call them inflammatory or simplistic or like dog whistle or, it's like that. It's not intended to help people understand, but sort of reach for the extremes. And while those extremes do exist, I'm not minimizing this at all. To explain it in terms of, responding to extremes, while the extremes need to be accommodated within any policy, the policy shouldn't be written in response to the extremes. It should be written for a purpose. Let me see if I can find those. Okay, unconstitutional, rights, overhauled, privilege, addicted. You only want to address those who are addicted. You have to distinguish between users and addicts before you can act. No, it may be use, and it may be different for a person who is expected to sit at their desk all day versus somebody who's like a bus driver who's driving down the road and hauling precious cargo morning and afternoon. Working for GovGuam is a privilege. It's a job, but it's also a lifetime job. And maybe that's where the privilege comes in. But it shouldn't be a privilege. It should simply be a job. And we should be getting as much out as we are in payment. You know, both salary and civil service protections and pension and health care. All of that, you know, it's the salary plus overhead is the value we should be getting out of each employee every day. It should not be a privilege where they get something and they're privileged because they don't have to give back. You know, that's almost like waving the white flag. We surrender. Policy is decades old and should be overhauled. If it's an executive order, the executive can re-establish it anytime. And if someone back in 1995 issues an executive order, the following governor doesn't have to honor it. He can, if he wants, he can direct his directors to follow that order, or he can ignore it. And also, and if it's ignored, there's no foul. It's because there was no policy coming out of the legislature to make a government-wide testing policy. So the legislature has not addressed this either at all. If there's an executive order, then it's a policy within the executive branch only. Now, Senator Moylan, in trying to have the rules changed to include drug testing, well, first off, he probably should have enlisted the assistance of one or more members of the majority to ensure that he has support. And when he did not do that, but just went out directly to the press with this, and then started bumping up against the rules chairman publicly, it's really a move that's designed to get headlines. Drug testing is unconstitutional. Lee had concerns about the original resolution, saying the suggested drug testing is unconstitutional. It may have been. I don't know from sitting here whether one or more court rulings have found that the executive order is insufficient to support job action, disciplinary action. But whatever the problem is, if Senator Biscoe Lee knows what the problem is, then she should be addressing it and not just tossing it out there. It's unconstitutional. And if it would violate employee rights and that employees tested under the program could file costly lawsuits against the legislature, everyone down at the legislature is politically hired. Why would there be lawsuits if all those people down there are working at the pleasure of a senator? That's another reason why, let me get into this. I did write something about it. It's just so, what kind of rights do you have? Of course you have certain rights, but you don't, like against harassment, things like that. But lawsuits? I can understand the enthusiasm of the headline writer to glom onto this non-story, which achieves its ultimate purpose to place the resolution's author and a colleague standing in opposition to appear to be doing their job. Indeed, this editorial admits there is no story here. And that's the line, neither senator's stance will meaningfully help address the longstanding broader issue of substance abuse across the government of Guam and how the problem affects the public. Neither one is addressing this. Then they proceed to announce what, quote, taxpayers want, a comprehensive policy. What? More new laws? Yes, the current GovGuam employment screening process could be examined and updated, and updates proposed to procedures, regulations, definitions, and if necessary, the general policy as expressed in law. But that is not the same as testing and procedures once an employee is permanent. So are we talking about just, employment, pre-employment testing? When the problem has been drug use while on the government payroll, right? It's not before you go in. So let's see. And it doesn't include the debacle of trying to enforce the laws that govern us all, to behavior by those on the GovGuam time clock, whether classified or political staff, elected or appointed. You know, the biggest problem we've seen is that we have laws about drug use, and those laws are not being enforced on the GovGuam employees and officials because they're GovGuam employees and officials, and because there's some other procedure which isn't faithfully enforced. The Guam Daily Post gets so close to articulating what taxpayers really want, then opts instead to succumb to the same self-serving marketing focus that compromises the public's ability to hold anyone accountable. We have numerous examples of supervisors unable to hold GovGuam employees accountable for breaking applicable law and policy, and numerous examples of elected officials failing to faithfully uphold applicable law. Who cares if senators want to hire drug abusers? Just report it and let us hold those senators accountable at the polls. Are senators meeting with Civil Service Commission members and government attorneys to delineate the administrative from criminal justice procedures applicable to behavior of GovGuam workers while on the job, and possible ways to simplify those procedures so that we can have enforcement in the public interest? Have reporters asked them? Until the media is clear in its reporting and editorial stance, including headline writing, we taxpayers will continue to struggle to build the efficient, effective government we expect. We are not impotent. We are self-governing. We need straight reporting, not political or marketing spin to milk stories for all they are worth to politicians or newspaper sales. So, thank you very much, Guam Daily Post, for your editorial. GovGuam needs to revamp its policy on drug abuse. However, no star today, baby. You know, I can't see how you can get so close, or the Post gets so close and not hit the bullseye. I mean, it's like you're throwing the dart sideways or something. Very accurate, but with a, you got the squiggle in there. That must be it. That must be it. That must be it. They wrote the editorial at 4:20. Okay, or 4:22. $22 million more in fiscal 2019 revenue than expected. Okay, last week was $15.7 million. Now it's $22 million. All right. Can we put up a cheer? Yay! Yeah, pay those taxes. Pay those taxes. Man, those people at Revenue and Taxation are just, they deserve a bonus for bringing in more money than we expected them to bring in. Where's the logic here? I'm not going to read the article to you. It's funny. It's funny, not funny, funny haha. It's funny, yeah, it's silly. So $22 million is left over after all the 2019 allotments were released? Huh? Oh, really? $22 million available for remember UOG? I think Frank Ishizaki has a column in the paper saying that it's not UOG's fault that it's short so much money over the years. $22 million is going to go to is available for appropriation to GMH. $22 million is going to be paid out to authorized expenditures from previous years. That's the $80 million deficit that the governor was referring to. But there wouldn't be any for 2019. So whatever is not paid in 2019, no, those are already covered. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a $22 million surplus. Because surplus only means after we've already covered everything from 2019. Or maybe it's $22 million surplus because they didn't pay all the allotments in 2019. At some point, the reporters are going to have to drill down into this stuff and ask the people who are writing the press releases or while they're discussing it to define the terms of these releases. So which is it? Is it all of the above? Where's this $22 million going? And is it just extra money, or is it money that came in after everything was decided to be spent? But we really didn't spend the whole appropriation from last year, so it's part of the $80 million deficit. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Who decides, the governor or the legislature? The legislature is supposed to decide where the money goes. But in the budget law, it should say what's going to happen to the revenues that have been authorized and are collected, the revenues that are collected, but it's outside the window of the fiscal year for them to get an allotment. Will we be told when they decide? Is another question. Who's going to tell us when they decide what to do with this $22 million? I know the legislature is just itching to pass some more bills, to direct it to somewhere. And the governor's already said, oh, we have an $80 million deficit. But I'd like to see a list of all those things that are authorized to be purchased that we didn't have enough money to pay for, as she's talking about. Compare the lists and see if anything from 2019 is on there. Should not be. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. I need to tilt my screen a little bit so I can see. Facebook Live. The Facebook Live. And let's see what we've got going on Facebook Live here. And give me a break here. Margaret Bloss says, Hafaday, Daryl, and team. Listening at 11:05 p.m. Tuesday night. Hey. Welcome, Margaret. Thank you. Oh, sorry about that. Getting in close to that camera there. But, yeah. I'm very happy that you could join us. And I'm hoping that you have a really, really nice, beautiful October evening in, I think you're in Nevada now, right? Then, let's see, Sherry Iriarty says half a day, and Ishmael Velez with a whole bunch of emoticons here. I want to wish happy birthday to my amazing wife, Lisa. Hey, I know I don't say it often, but I am proud to be your husband and of the amazing mother and woman you are. I know it's been a rough year with Dad passing, but he lives on through you and our amazing boys. Hugwaizahau, and happy birthday. Ishmael. Wow, that's what those things are. It's all loves and kisses and flowers here. Yeah. So going out to Ishmael Velez's wife, Lisa, happy birthday. Happy birthday. And then he continues on. Oh, you said self-governing. Are they calling the lieutenant governor a liar? I mean, that's the claim at the UN, non-self-governing. Well, I'm sure there are people who are going to think that Josh is not even self-governing himself, but his own behavior. But as far as self-governing, I say we are self-governing because we can actually do some things. Now, other people may slap it down and say, no, you can't do it. But we can propose it, and we can organize our own community. We can organize our own community, and there are restraints on that. And that's because we're one step removed from full participation in constitutional government. But within that realm, we have options. And that's what I meant about self-governing. We can pass and we can craft a heads-up, non-assailable, won't be overturned in court, drug testing policy. And disciplining Government of Guam employees and officials, appointed officials, because the elected ones are accountable just to us at the polls. But the ones who are, or they can be charged and then they can be removed for cause if they're found guilty, right? But this is where the drug abuse policy comes in. It's not the testing. It's whether the drug use and abuse impacts their role as a government employee? Does it endanger the public? It's not whether they go home and have a drink. It's 4:30. Let's take a break here and come back with more Tall Tales. And I got a couple folks waiting on the phones, so we'll go to the phones right after this break.
In life, we all have the ability to make a difference, to make an impact on someone's life. As we look around us, time never stops, but we are filled with endless moments of gratitude. The art of giving is incorporated in so many different ways. At Guam Gift Baskets, we want to be able to express your gratitude and love to those who you care about. Show your appreciation with a gift made with love this holiday season. Visit our website at guamgiftbaskets.com. See the smiles, touch their hearts, feel the experience.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Yes, indeed. And I'm back. Before we go to the phones, I just want to finish up on something. Lisa Velez's, the birthday girl, her husband, continued by saying the governor means that she still has checks in her checkbook. Doesn't mean that there's money in the bank. No, actually, it means there's money in the bank. It means that there's $22 million sitting in the government of Guam accounts under that special fund that says these were revenues of fiscal year 2019 in excess of what we estimated to be the revenues of 2019. And they can be spent for, those funds can be journal vouchered out to other accounts and spent according to law. So no, there's actually money in the bank. That is money. That is real positive accounts, and that probably it's probably the reason why they've been able to pay out so much of the tax refunds, because of that extra flush of money. And don't know why there's that extra amount of money, and they should be telling us why. Maybe somebody paid their overdue tax bill. James Howard is issuing a blue star to Elon Musk and the Starship. So I guess there's a story there that we should be taking a look for. You can go online and find out what's going on with Elon Musk and his Starship. But here on Tall Tales, we're going to go to line one and talk with Al. Al, welcome to Tall Tales.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Daryl. Okay, anyway, $22 million that the government got from the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to have to pay me too for my car. The COLA, cost of living allowance. You get every year from the government as well.
Yeah. Did the legislature include it in the budget bill this year?
Yes, supposed to be every year.
Oh, then that's already covered.
Retired from the government of Guam so long.
Well, then that should be in. That should be already in the budget for 2020. So right now we're in the fiscal year 2020. Okay. But that $22 million is revenues that have been collected for invoices that were sent out, or tax processes where they were paid for that were due in the month of September or before.
Right on, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Talk to you again later.
And we'll be both looking for our COLA. Thank you very much, Al, for the call.
Okay.
Okay. And I got Joe on line too. Hey there, Joe. Welcome to Tall Tales.
Hey, Daryl. I got a suggestion that they need to be prioritizing the homeless, the least of us who really need help, especially if they're mentally impaired and has been identified. So whether it be a homeless shelter or a help center, either or both. And then after that, I would say it needs to be between paying off some of the debt that our territorial government has, and then everything else the senators will have to make a case for, whether it be water reparations or tax refunds, and whatever the issues are. But
nothing with the hospital.
Well, I mean, it ties into services for the homeless. I think a lot of the homeless who are impaired, they have real health issues.
Yeah,
especially the older ones.
That's right. And I'm not really sure. I know in the past it's been a great job that public health has been doing for outreach into areas where the government extends its health services out into the community without waiting for people to come into a clinic or into the hospital. And so I would hope that that's still going on. I haven't heard much about this in years, but I do know that over the years, public health has been going out and seeking to deliver health services to people on a preventive basis, whether it's mental health or immunizations or encouraging people to come in and take advantage of available programs.
The beginning of this year, Senator Moylan had a bill out for the homeless. So he's the guy to go to. And it's interesting you brought up that he was grandstanding politically instead of trying to work with his colleagues. But I've heard it said that when you're in the minority party, you try to do your best to call attention to your party and what your party is up to, what you're doing to make a better case for the next election.
Oh yeah.
Prove your party standing.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that he's been talked to and consulted. I don't get the impression that he does things not calculated.
Well, but my concern is that it's just him, and every single every single senator down there needs 7 others to support their ideas.
Well, I mean, there's only 5 Republicans.
Yes.
5.
Yeah, but good ideas can get.
You just said because it probably is just. You know what I'm saying?
No. Good ideas can get the support of members from the other party. If it's a good idea, it can get the support. But if you jump up, and I've worked down there for years and years, and if a senator jumps up and goes, "This is what I want to do," and splashes their idea onto the front page of the newspaper, the other senators are going to stand back and go, "Huh? So it's going to be you by yourself to do it?" And you didn't even pick up the phone and call me and ask me if I could co-sponsor it with you. And you've seen the bills that have gone through with all the back office work that can be done in advance, and then you take a fully cooked idea and then you go forward and say, "This is what we are going to do on behalf of the people of Guam."
So you'd be willing to have Senator Moylan on your program to talk about it?
Oh, I don't think he'd want to, but I'm certain I would welcome him to walk in any time.
That'd be awesome
because I know he's smart. I know he knows what he's doing, and I think if we were to talk face to face, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not a Republican. However, I love talking to Republicans. Because
you know what, I'm not sure what I am, man. Because I tend to lean when it comes to familia. I tend to lean to the left because everyone's getting older, especially with needing stuff and then war reparations.
Hopefully, we're getting older.
when it comes to ideology, I'm pro-life, and I like the concept of being physically conservative if we were in an economic boom, but we're not in an economic boom.
22 million surplus.
No, but I'm talking about like when we were experiencing the early years of tourism booming, and in the same time simultaneously with the U.S. had the .com boom. We had all this money right? We're hemorrhaging,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of thinking about paying down the debt, everyone's thinking about, hey, how can we increase our credit rating? It seemed to be the case, you know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems to be, you know, they're more interested in getting their increasing their credit borrowing power scores.
We had a boom time, and I was working in the legislature during that boom time, and we were totally appalled by the suggestions, which it was the ADA administration, to distribute the boom in the form of a rebate to taxpayers instead of building schools and bridges and highways.
He was trying to get reelected, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah, but that's politics. It's not building a school. We're still waiting on how to build a school. And back then, Simon Sanchez was already falling apart. My dad was teaching there, and the ceiling was falling in from the leaks on the roof.
What about after he got reelected? Was he still not open to the idea of building stuff?
Yeah, but the money was gone. The bubble burst. There was no more excess. You know, there was this huge there was a huge excess revenue. And that was the prosperity that could have been spread out if the money had been devoted to capital construction projects.
No, seriously.
Yes.
Seriously, we need to do something for the homeless people because, Daryl, I mean, it's ridiculous. You know that there's this new movie coming out, Countdown, where it predicts when you're going to pass.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet, but I haven't seen it, but I'll ask my wife if it's one we want to go to.
So. I mean, I meet people that were basically living on the street, and I look at their health condition. I'm like, I hate to say it, man, but I don't think you're going to be around that much longer. And I'm saying this out of caring, you know.
Yes.
Like I was saying, hey, maybe you got to see a doctor or a therapist, physical therapist or something, because you know it doesn't look good, you know. And I say this to people, and then like within a year, months to a year, they're gone. And we need to pay attention to people and show them we really care. And because I get a sense that there's this callous feeling where, hey man, if you don't follow, you know, what you were told to do early on, you're SOL. You were told to be prepared for this, like the ant and the grasshopper story, and you didn't listen, and this and that, and you didn't listen. Like, come on, man, let's be humane about this, you know?
No, but actually, you can turn it around the other way, and that was that we were told early on, back during catechism, that Jesus said, you know. Whatsoever you do to the least of you, you do to me. And so, you know, when we look at people who are suffering and they're on the street, you know, first thing I think of is are they here because they want to be here, or are they here because, you know, because it's like a con or a scam, or are they here because they really can't figure out how to take themselves out of this situation, and the only way they can cope is by getting out in public and displaying it. But it's
a little bit of all that.
Yes, absolutely. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the canary in the coal mine. If we have those, you know, there's probably 20 times more that are hidden.
Yeah, exactly, they are hidden. But here's the thing that's really troubling, okay? When you go to people to say, hey, help me help these people, right? Or this is your office helps people in this way. You help these people, and you get a response like, well, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And you look at them in disbelief. You're like, at least try to help them drink.
At least try. Yes.
Get a horse whisperer. You know.
Yes. Yes.
Do something. Don't just say, well, there's the horse, there's the water. You don't want to drink. What if the horse is blind or retarded or you know what I'm saying, or can't walk? You know.
That's right. That's right. And also we actually have the government structures. We have people who are hired, and that's within their job description. Now, maybe the particular effort is not funded, or some people in the staff have retired out, or they've gone to private sector employment, or they've gone to the States. And so we don't have the kind of a robust public capacity to address this. But in fact, our government is set up to do this, and it's not to be namby-pamby about it and say, oh, we have to take care of everyone. This is, you know, we have to have our social programs, or we're not living up to Democratic Party ideals. It's not about that.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate you give me voice time on the radio.
Oh, thank you for getting me started on this. I'm going to finish off this.
Man.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. Call again. Joe's got me started on something here, and that is that there are a couple ways of looking at why we have these kinds of social programs to help people like homeless and public health. One is that in this society, we don't want to have, we don't want the island to look like 1943 India, you know, where there's like a famine going on. So there's people going down the street in Rolls Royces, and then people dying on the sidewalk. Okay, we don't need to have, that's not us. That isn't us. And we have health programs where at the hospital they take all comers, anyone who walks in the door, right? And it may be expensive and it may not be run well, and the fee schedule may be out of whack, may not be defensible. But that's a separate problem than having somebody walk up and go and being asked whether they're a taxpayer, whether they're a citizen, whether they are of a particular racial background or national identity, and or any of that, you know, qualification. If the person needs medical care, we give it to them. So that's at the hospital. They're just stationary. But at public health, they have outreach. And they go out to places like, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, going out to the dollar homes or the dollar lots up there in Jigo, or what's that one, the Gilbaza. And going in and finding out what the health needs are of those people, the needs of people, that they don't have transportation to make it down. Or they've got tuberculosis, they've got scabies, or they got you know, all kinds of, you know, hookworm, whatever it is, so that we don't have these diseases becoming endemic in parts of our community, or even being spread in the schools. Right? We can address them where those health needs of the community, where they are, and then we are all better for that. We don't have people suffering in the community while we're clinking glasses, toasting our $22 million surplus. You know, it's a, and I'm not saying that anybody's doing this on purpose, but they could be doing this because of inattention. They could be doing this and the press doesn't bother reporting on it. And maybe they just don't bother, the agencies don't bother picking up the phone and calling the media and saying, look what we're doing, so that the rest of us know. You know, maybe it's going on. You know, no news is good news sort of thing. You know, mental health hasn't been in the news for quite a while. Hopefully it's because they're doing all right. And they are scooping up the people that need the help, where they are funded to provide that help. Same thing with drug court and the government contractors who are dealing with drug rehabilitation. You know, we provide that so that we have a livable community. And then we have people who are on the job enforcing laws on importing and marketing drugs in the community. And why do we do that? Why not just go ahead and let drugs just go rampant? It's because it's dragging down the quality of our fellow citizens and our youth, and turning them into wastrels. It's not because we don't want them to do drugs. It's that they become a drag on the rest of us. And then some people are getting really rich because of the scarcity, and then we have to deal with that part of it. James Howard says, right on, Daryl. I'm not quite sure why he's saying that, but thank you. I'll accept it. It must have been my Jesus quote. You know, there's a reason, and this stuff is like woven into us. It's part of the weave of my skin. You know, the fabric I wear for our skin. You know, so you know, this is supposed to be foremost on our minds as we go through life. You know, as we give thanks for the blessings bestowed upon us, and as we as we look at the scarcity of tax money and how to prioritize the different needs that we have in order to address those common needs. You know, no potholes, nobody, being able to see the damn lanes and when we're driving down the road in the wet. 4:50. Time to take a break here. Just in time, Real Joe. Thank you very much for the music. I'll be right back with more Tall Tales after this.
Konnichiwa! We'll be celebrating the 40th Japan Autumn Festival on Saturday, November 16th from 2 until 9 at the Governor Joseph Flores Beach Park. That's Ipao Beach Park. Parking will be available across Oka Payless with free shuttle service every 15 minutes starting at 1:30. Advance tickets available now at the Japan Club of Guam office located on the first floor of Pia Marine during business hours. The Japan Autumn Festival at Ipao Beach Park, November 16th from 2 to 9. Come, join us. For information, call 646-8066. This message made possible by Choice Broadcasting.
We can't buy this house.
What?
It has 4 bathrooms. Just think of all the bathtub rings, water spots, and stains, plus the cleaning products I'll have to buy.
Didn't I tell you? The house comes with a non-electric Connecticut water treatment system. We'll have clean, soft water throughout the house to protect the water-using appliances, keep the tub, showers, and sinks looking like new, and help our skin, hair, and clothes look and feel great, too. The house even includes a Connecticut drinking water system.
A Connecticut system in the house? We'll take it.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Tall Tales. Let's see. James Howard says slackers. Yeah, there are slackers. There are even slackers who have made their money because their parents made the money or their grandparents made the money. And then they're slackers, but they've got law degrees and they've got their craft occupation, and the dad set them up in a business and what counts for slackers? Are they supposed to be contributing to society? I mean, are we all required to contribute to society in some particular measure? And is that measure the amount of taxes we contribute? I know that there are people who simply game the system. We know that they're going to get. They know they're going to get a check. They're going to get SNAP. They're going to get whatever, and then they go, okay, let's just sit back and we'll pool our resources. We'll organize our family in such a way that it maximizes. They can run the calculations. They do the calculations. They're not stupid, and those are slackers. But those are slackers because the system is set up in a way that has incentives. And it's the hardest thing to do as a person who's crafting public policy, is to not provide negative incentive. It's hard. But if you're going to eliminate all those negative incentives, you've got to have a place for people to go. Are you giving them jobs? Or maybe we should cut the minimum wage in half, so that it allows everyone to work, but the people at the bottom can't afford to live. So they're all working, but none of them are paying taxes. They all get the EITC, all of them. So it's a hard thing to do. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to create social programs without negative incentives. Let's see, and my eyesight is it's challenged. Okay, Lisa Velez's husband is back again, and he says, I am glad you said it. It is money in the bank. That's what I was getting at. Now, how about utilizing some of that money to establish local services for our veterans? How about establishing actual community outreach programs to get a greater sense of what the real people are going through? What about establishing actual industry and not a free-for-all so-called green industry? Let me touch on each of those for a moment. I was ready to do something else, but you don't want to hear about that stuff. Veteran services. I think the last time I counted, there were 7 separate Veterans Affairs offices funded by different VA programs and GovGuam programs. But I've never heard of all of them sitting down in the same room and coordinating where the gaps are. But I have heard veterans tell me that there are gaps. And I don't know where the gaps are, because the gaps are largely, the 7 separate services are supposed to basically be setting up the same kinds of services, parallel services that Government of Guam and federal offices, other offices, and services that are funded should be providing. But veterans want to go through the veterans door to get there. But those veterans programs are not coordinated with the line program. Here's an example. You know the initiative to have veterans health care be provided by available private providers in the community. Why is that a new idea? Why is that such a novel idea? Why wasn't it instituted 20, 30, 40 years ago by vouchers? If you don't have someone who is a veteran, who is specialized to work on veterans health care only, or in particular, why do veterans not want to go to those healthcare providers? And it may be that there's training that's needed, or they should be go through some medical education, continuing education, professional education, in order to become sensitized to the needs of veterans. But veterans want a veteran on the other side of the desk or on the other side of the stethoscope. That's harder to do. The demand is real specific. But the 7 offices that are funded federally and locally should be sitting down once a week together and hammering out stretching a net in between what they're providing. It shouldn't come back to the rest of the community, because that's the demand of the veterans. That's the first one. Second one, how about establishing actual community outreach programs to get a greater sense of what the real people are going through? That's our political system. That's why we have 15 senators, and why those senators have staffs that are not necessarily technical people. They're supposed to be from within the community, so the senators know what's going on in the community. Really know. That's the political structure, Republican and Democrat, that is supposed to be at work. Back in the day when I was working at Adelup, and this is like 35 years ago, there was an office called Community Affairs, where the governor had 7 or 8 people, who all they did all day was respond to phone calls to the governor's office from people in the community going, you got to come, I need some help here. And go out there and interview the people and find out why they're falling through the cracks. Okay, now do we want that? Do we want another governor's community outreach office? How about the mayors? That's what they're doing. There are, I'd say, probably a good 1,000 people in the government of Guam now whose responsibility it is to directly interact with the rest of the 160,000 people. Now, does that mean it's 1 for 160? Well, not everyone needs services like that. 4:59 already? Yeah. Time to make way for Fox News and our halftime show. And I will be back in about 7 minutes, and we will continue and talk about things that are going on with self-determination, Supreme Court, and, and we may even talk about the re-election of our governor. So stay tuned, and I'll be back, you'll be back, and we'll have ourselves a good time for the next hour here on Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Democrats call it bombshell testimony. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The top U.S. diplomat to Ukraine who wrote in a text message that withholding aid for political favors would be crazy testifies on Capitol Hill.
Ambassador Bill Taylor told House investigators a meeting Ukrainian President Zelensky wanted with President Trump was conditioned on publicly opening an investigation into alleged Ukrainian election interference and an energy company linked to former Vice President Joe Biden. Taylor described an irregular policy channel to manage Ukrainian policy, guided by President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
Fox's Jared Halpern. President Trump denies there was ever any quid pro quo. President Trump set off another firestorm by comparing the impeachment hearings to a lynching.
Illinois Congressman Bobby Rush tweeting, "You think this impeachment is a lynching? What the hell is wrong with you? Do you know how many people who look like me have been lynched since the inception of this country by people who look like you?" On the Republican side, reaction ranged from full support for the president to a more nuanced reaction.
Fox's John Roberts. Two men connected to President Trump's personal attorney Rudy Giuliani appear in court in New York today to be arraigned on campaign finance violations. Igor Furman and Lev Parnas were arrested this month preparing to leave the country.
While an indictment says Parnas and Furman attempted to skirt campaign laws, they're also of interest to U.S. House Democrats, who say they assisted Giuliani in trying to gather information against Joe Biden as it relates to his son Hunter's work in Ukraine.
Fox's Gernal Scott. And stocks fell yesterday, pushed lower by disappointing earnings. The Dow lost 39 points. The Nasdaq gave up 58. America's listening to Fox News.
Chili's Grill and Bar is now open at the second floor of the Two Sands Plaza.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Come and see what the buzz is all about. Grab your friends and savor their sizzling fajitas, big mouth burgers, and fall off the bone smoked ribs while sipping on their world famous Presidente margaritas. Treat yourself to an elevated experience at Chili's and feel why they're like no place else. Now open on the second floor of Two Sands Plaza. Together, we Chili's.
Hey, do you know what time the bank closes? I need to deposit my check.
You know you can do that from your phone.
I can?
With Bank of Guam's mobile app, it's easy. Just endorse the back and snap a pic to deposit it into your account. You can do this from anywhere, anytime, which means no rushing to catch the bank and no lines.
With Bank of Guam's mobile app and online banking, we're always open. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Today's the day California's largest utility could start cutting power to about 190,000 homes and businesses to prevent another outbreak of wildfires.
Governor Gavin Newsom wrote PG&E's president a letter saying these shutoffs are unacceptable. The company president, Bill Johnson, says they are doing it for
safety. The sole intent is to prevent a catastrophic wildfire caused by a spark from electrical equipment.
Newsom says this is the result of decades of PG&E prioritizing profits over safety, inadequate investment, and neglect of infrastructure.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. PG&E says the power shutoffs, mostly in the Sierra foothills and north of San Francisco, would last about 48 hours. In Southern California, SoCal Edison says it will cut power Thursday to about 130,000 customers. The New York Attorney General's office tells a packed courtroom in New York City that Exxon misled investors about climate change, causing them to overvalue its stock. The company denies any wrongdoing. And a documentary about one of the British royal couples takes a behind-the-scenes look at life in the press.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle open up about their feelings and their dealings with a negative British press in a new documentary on ABC, Harry and Meghan, An African Journey. The hour-long doc delves into the pressure on the Duchess during a very crucial time.
Like any woman, especially when they're pregnant, you're really vulnerable.
Harry also speaks about how he feels about the press and if it ignites memories of how his mother died.
Every single time I see a camera, every single time I hear a click, every single time I see a flash,
it takes me straight back.
Princess Diana died in a fatal car accident after being chased by the paparazzi. The doc airs at 10 Eastern. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And the Nationals take Game 1 of the World Series, Game 2 against the Astros tonight in Houston. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
When you think about better water, think Kinetico softened water. Kinetico water conditioners work like no other, supplying a continuous flow of luxuriously soft water without disruption and without use of electricity. After all, better water flows from better thinking. Kinetico.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water. Call American Water Tech at 649-2301 or email info@americanwatertech.com.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge-watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon here on The Point. Before the top of the hour, we were taking a look at some comments received on Facebook Live from Lisa Velez's husband. And I got about partway through it, and there's some other comments, too, on the side. So I want to get through this. This is a good conversation here. We were talking about outreach programs to get a greater sense of what the real people are going through. And yes, you have to have people who are sensitive enough, not so sensitive that they can't get their feet dirty when there's a flood down in Umang Street, or when the problem involves domestic violence or something. You got to have people who've got a pretty strong stomach, but also are knowledgeable about how what government programs there are available, and where the point of contact is for the intake for those programs that would address their needs. That part of that is something that is the skill of the political leader that has this staff budget. Is that what they want to do? Now, the governor would want to do that because these are executive services. But why would the legislature do that? Except to get an idea of what the people really want and then draw up bills to address these needs. But that hasn't worked out as well as I've just described it to be. Ideally, it doesn't work well. Not for the amount of money we're spending. And then he continues by saying, what about establishing actual industry and not a free-for-all so-called green industry? Well, this free-for-all so-called green industry that hasn't been established, but it's the investment of GPA in alternative energy, renewable energy, And the green industries that you've seen as far as the sustainability push is out of an initiative out at UOG, which has its own grant, and it's funded to do that, to promote public awareness of green alternatives. And where the public benefits in the green alternatives, although sometimes it's a pain in the butt to go through, losing your straws and things like that. But actually where you get the payoff is that you don't have to sink $30 million into a new cell down at the landfill about 5 years ahead of its time. We don't just fill up the landfill or have all this disorganized trash along the highways and on the back roads. The tons and tons of stuff that's hauled out every time the authorities have to go down Swamp Road with their eyes open. That kind of thing. We can't get a handle on our solid waste until we seek ways to get a handle on it. How do we get a handle on it? And being green is actually one way to do it. But the industries for green waste, no industry is going to be set up by the government. They are encouraging private investment, and no private investor is going to invest unless there is a profit to be made. And so lots of job owning, but there really isn't a green industry except those which are proving to be profitable. And also keep in mind that there are legacy industries who would be just very, very happy to take your dollar. As long as you're willing to pay 19 to 22 cents a kilowatt hour, many possible ways to generate power are possible, and they'll pay off. And if you can still pay, if you're willing to pay 22 cents a kilowatt hour into the indefinite future, there are plenty of people who would love to come in and produce power at 13 cents and pocket the difference. And those are not green industries. So if the green industries are 18 cents, and the combined cycle is 18 cents, because they're going to run a natural gas pipeline up from Sasa Valley to Dedido. Oh boy, don't anybody come out here with a backhoe and start digging around that pipeline, because it'll blow a hole about the size of Micronesia Mall in the ground. Anyway, let's see. Elwin Champaco Quitano is with us this afternoon on Facebook. He says the government does ignore specific communities. GWA refuses to provide water to Chamorro Land Trust Commission leaseholders who have a right to it. This leads to various island-wide health problems like dengue fever. It will grow worse. Now, this problem of not having infrastructure running into the government's own developing lands, it's not a problem running water into private lands, because you won't get your house construction permit until you pay for the water line coming in, right? Or those places like Gil Breeze. There's no water line going in, and that's private. It's not even the government development, because the developer didn't run the water lines in at great expense. That would have priced those lots out of the market. A lot of it is market, but also the government has been opening up these lands and distributing them to people, and then without a plan on how to extend the basic infrastructure out to those lands. There's no paved roads, there's no adequate water line, and there's no sewer service. But that's okay, because the density is not high, and it's not supposed to be for residential anyway. It's supposed to be for agriculture, and so the agriculture should be able to pay for the system development charges. And let's see what else. Why do you need paved road for the farm? Just Coral Road's going to be good enough because it's only occasional use. But if you're going to allow development of government lands, Chamorro Land Trust Commission lands, then the Chamorro Land Trust Commission is the developer and supposed to be putting in the water lines. And they also have properties that are very valuable that they could be leasing out at market rate and taking that money and not putting it into staff, but putting it into system development charges. It's not GWA. GWA has one policy, and that is that when if somebody wants water, they have to pay for the line to go in. Now, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission is going to award 50 or 100 folks to have houses, and if those people all have enough money to pay for the houses over there in Barragata Heights, that water line's going in, not a problem. GWA will put it in, but they're not going to put it in for 100 new lots out in Swamp Road. Even if the brand new tank is there, they're not going to extend the lines unless the system development charge is paid. And those lots do not come with guaranteed system development, $5,000 or whatever it is per lot, $5,000 per lot. That's the problem. It's not GWA. Let's see. And yes, you're going to have disease-ridden areas. But actually, they just need to administer the program. Kazendo says, without slackers, there would be no need for big government. You see, even slackers have a use. But you can see the tongue sticking out of his cheek there, right? But actually, if we didn't have slackers, we'd be in Singapore, or we would be like Singapore, or we could take all slackers and put them with a one-way ticket elsewhere. You get a free ticket, and here's a change of clothes, and shoes, and formula for the baby, and here's your ticket for 3, and you can get on the plane and go all the way to California. Bye. And there's various ways. It's only money, right? Ishmael Velez says, come on, Daryl. Locally so-called VA officers are uneducated in the system and politically appointed. I know many vets who have been turned away by these so-called offices because the staff couldn't answer their questions. And Ishmael, you're absolutely right. Now, do I know what I'm talking about? I do know what I'm talking about. I spent 2 solid years, as the head of constituent casework in Robert Underwood's congressional office, and I was the constituent caseworker when I worked for Madeline Berdalia for 3.5 years, 4 years, in her office. Besides writing bills and stuff like that, when there was a constituent who came in, and after being interviewed, what was the nature of the problem? If it was a problem where we needed to investigate where in the system the solution to that problem was, then it would come to me, and I would go, okay, let's find the intake person, and we'll set up the appointment, and we'll make sure you're going to go there. The VA, or the veterans programs, because they are federal in nature and medical, and also some medical, like psychological services, and because it has to do with access to federal records, and because the Department of Defense has not been forthcoming on information on illnesses and syndromes that have been emerging from their cohort. It doesn't emerge for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. The offices are not well equipped to deal with individual requests for help. It's difficult. And I was a political appointee in a political office. So you can get good ones, and you can get some really, ones totally unprepared to assist. And that's kind of again, it goes back to the accountability of the appointing authority. Who hired this person? blame it on that person. If it's the VA, local VA office, who hired the people in the local VA office? It's the governor. So hold it against that governor in the next election. Or go to the governor and say, the people down in that VA office don't know what they're talking about. Or you take it to the director and you say, why do you guys not know what you're talking about? And he may say, well, because you're supposed to be over there. And that's why I was saying that the 7 offices, the different offices that address VA, address requests from veterans, need to get together on a weekly or a monthly basis so that they can coordinate well amongst themselves to refer people for their various complaints and request for assistance. And that will be a more efficient and effective. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to be funded to coordinate. They're already individually funded to do various things. But at least if they can find out where the gaps are, then they can work on covering those gaps. But I don't know if they're doing that. But that is one way to do it. That is one way to do it. And James Howard says, Al Gore would agree. You know, Al Gore is a very agreeable person. And especially he's going to agree with me because, you know, we're of the same political stripe. But, you know, Al Gore is Al Gore. And he's got a life, you know, after being vice president. As many vice presidents have had. You know, they've lived on, beyond. And so will Josh Tenorio, despite rumors that Lou Leon Guerrero and Josh won't be running as a team. Governor says, Josh and I are seeking re-election. That was in yesterday's paper. Amazing. Quote, I'm not going to repeat what I said at our fundraiser, but yes, they are just rumors, unfounded rumors. The fundraiser was held Wednesday night at Kento's at Hyatt Regency Guam in Tumon. What's that all about? But this is the part that gets me about Governor saying that Josh and I are seeking re-election. Okay, so should we put a period on their work and treat all future activity as campaign related? Are they in campaign mode right now? Is it campaign time already? Are they running on their record of achievements? Is that what they're doing? They're announcing now. They're having fundraiser and they're announcing their slate of candidates, at least between Lou and Josh. Or was Lou just trying to defend her choice of lieutenant governor? Is she under attack because maybe they wanted somebody who was more, you know, hetero or, you know, less flame and more, you know, game? I don't know. Is there a stain or a taint, or did something happen with Josh? You know, it goes back to what the unfounded rumors were that were discussed during the fundraiser. You know, so she says she's going to run again. That's a public story. That's what she said to the reporter, Heidi Gilbert. But, and that's of interest to us, but here it is, you know, 3 years out, and they're already running for re-election. That's curious. And it's just curious because there's so much work to be done. And you would think that they would just say, you know, based on our achievements, we're ready to announce. But let's see, it's already Wednesday, and have we had any update yet since last Friday? We're supposed to have a weekly update, right? It's supposed to come out on Friday afternoon. And it keeps getting later and later in the week before they announce it. So last week it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, even though they're supposed to announce weekly on Friday, which was, you know, several weeks back. But now it's inching forward. So last week the update didn't come out till Tuesday or Wednesday. So now it's already Wednesday and we haven't heard any more. Also, remember that Guam Transportation Improvement Program public meeting that was held on October 2nd? Whatever happened with that? They haven't posted it yet on their website. Maybe I should run over there, and it's just across the street. Run over there and knock on the door and say, let me have those documents. You had a meeting. You had a presentation. It's not on your website yet. So, could do that. Let's see. Let's see what else we have here. No. We're still there. We're still current. Excuse me. But this is good. Bill Watch. Resolution demands equality of Americans in the territories. Excuse me. Did you see this? Maybe this is a good way to get into. Excuse me here while I wet my whistle here. Let's see. Digging down into what I've collected. There. It was in Monday's Guam Daily Post. Resolution demands equality of Americans in the territory. House Resolution 641, a resolution that calls for the equal treatment of 4 million Americans in Guam and other insular areas. And the article is pretty good. It summarizes well what HRES 641, let me see, you can see that there. If you're watching on Facebook, you can see I've got the printout of the original document. And it says, HRES 641, acknowledging that the decisions rendered by the United States Supreme Court in the so-called insular cases rest on the same racist and ethnocentric assumptions leading to Plessy versus Ferguson's infamous, quote, separate but equal doctrine, that the legal doctrine emanating from the insular cases has no place in United States constitutional law, and that the insular cases must be rejected in their entirety. And I've read through this. I've read it, and I've been reading this stuff for years. Even the insular cases, which are no big deal. But they do define for the court. They do provide, and they were intended to provide some guidance on how to apply federal law and the Constitution in the territories. Because the insular territories were not the same as the territories that were taken from the Mexicans and the British and the French and whatnot. And so I'd prepared something for this. Let me see if this makes sense to you. Sorry, Charlie, but this is political rhetoric intended to surf the news media, traditional and online, and not designed to attract colleague support. Right? House Resolution 641. Is that really intended to get support of the colleagues, of the congressmen? Why not? Well, why would the Congress label the Supreme Court as still in 2019 following racist justifications? The findings, while you read the insular cases and you see the racism just dripping out of the way it's written, the cases themselves are not racist. The straight law is not racist. Some of the justification is racist, but if you look at the law itself, the court actually contradicts itself in different cases, so that it just leaves it up to Congress. If this is what you want, this is what you can get. There is no constitutional imperative to treat territories in any particular way. It's only, how do our tax laws apply? The taxes and tariffs and stuff like that. Back at a time before there was an income tax, and the United States government was supported on tariffs. Let's see. Does Congress ever, through a resolution like this, does Congress ever tell the Supreme Court how to rule on a case? Would the Congress pass this resolution and send it to the Supreme Court and say, This is what we think about you guys. So any case that comes up about the territories, we want you to completely disregard the insular cases. Does it ever? Nah, it never does. Parties to a case advancing through the federal courts can argue these points that are brought up in HRES 641. But usually appeals in the court to address century-old grievances are secondary to arguing the actual points of law. The insular cases were necessary in the absence of specific federal policy on new territories, whether these areas would be treated the same as previous territories, such as Louisiana Purchase, lands acquired from Great Britain in the Northwest, lands north of the Rio Grande and other Mexican lands in what are now California, Nevada, New Mexico, and Arizona, and so on. If the insular territories were incorporated, then the U.S. would have been expanding its system of states. Do we want to repudiate that and require that from today on all territories be incorporated into new or existing states? Is that what HRES 641 is saying? Throw all those cases out because every territory that's ever been grabbed is supposed to be part of a state eventually. The bottom line for all the dust-up is Congress has plenary power over the territories, just as it does other property of the national government not belonging to any constituent state. There is no need to repudiate the insular cases just for the territories to rise to the level of quality in developed economy and self-government that would cause the question to be asked, should we admit this area as a state, or would we endorse them to be a new independent nation? In the territories, we each of the territories independently, separately, have an opportunity to develop themselves in such a way that we can become attractive as states or part of a state. Like, Virgin Islands is right next to Puerto Rico. Why not just become part of Puerto Rico and become a state of Puerto Rico and become a state? Say, hey, we're ready for this. And then that's where Congress is going to have to put up or shut up. It's not going back to the insular cases. So I just not impressed at all by this stuff. As much as I like to see territorial matters being raised in Congress, that's a real non-starter. So, 5:32. Let's take a break here, Real Joe, and we'll come back with more Tall Tales.
Want 10% off your next flight to the Want 10% off your next flight to the U.S.? Now through October 31, receive 10% off select United Airlines flights to the U.S. when you purchase your ticket with your United credit card or United Mileage Plus credit card from First Hawaiian Bank. Use promo code FHB019 when booking your flight. With a travel sale like this, you could wake up to a different sunrise in any part of the U.S. Visit FHB.com/UnitedFareSale19 to learn more. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. First Hawaiian Bank, member FDIC.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
What can we learn from public companies that have to report their earnings every 90 days? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll look at how we might be able to apply the 90-day timeline to our own performance.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for October, Taiwan-style beef noodle soup, beef shank and tendons, slowly simmered in a rich Taiwanese-style soy-based broth, served over noodles with bok choy and cilantro, available in Hagåtña and in Tumon. At the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
We're already in the season 4 World Series, but nobody is excited about the Washington Nationals, not even people in Washington. So you can adopt that team if you'd like, but I believe there are few takers, but it's okay. It's so far away. I know that if you want baseball, you're just going to have to go down to Paseo Stadium. So back on Sunday, Bob Klitzkie sent me a note, and it was having to do with a story that came out of Guam Daily Post on October 21st, which was Monday. Governor, we will appeal plebiscite case. And he took 2 quotes from Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. I have always believed that our right to self-determination belongs to the native inhabitants of Guam because only the native inhabitants of Guam were denied that most basic of human rights. And while I appreciate the risks involved, I cannot deny our people the right of an appeal so long as others may be willing to champion it. And Bob's comment was, now I know who, quote, our people is. And he sent that to me back in the morning of the 21st on Monday morning. But we're just kind of getting around to this. We've got Governor, we will appeal plebiscite case. And then here's another headline. As Governor mounts appeal, delegate seeks political status vote that's open to everyone. And then Governor, delegate disagree. That's not news. And then Mike Phillips says Guam wins whether Supreme Court takes case or not. The Attorney General says Supreme Court appeal has risks. And Senator Terlahi welcomes decision to take Guam's plebiscite issue to U.S. Supreme Court. And then there's another one that says they doesn't want it. This is so. It's so. I wish there was a way to connect the dots to make them easier to look at. Make it look like a constellation in the sky. But it's not. It's ugly. It's ugly. It's not. There's no statesmanship in this. It doesn't do right by the native inhabitants or the whole people of Guam. Either one. To delay and delay and delay on a question on whether you're going to have an appeal and then not have enough time to mount an appeal because you gotta find attorneys that are accredited to practice before the Supreme Court of the United States, and here we are, like how many days prior, and we're going to decide to just, oh yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it. Now we have to ask for an extension because we haven't gotten a lawyer yet. That just drives up the cost of that lawyer. And pick one out if anyone wants to do it. Of course, lawyers, as long as you're going to pay them, they'll argue anything. They'll argue anything. That's why I don't, I don't put too much stake in what's going to be taken into the judicial branch, because there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. But for sure, one thing's guaranteed, that the lawyers will get paid. So I don't, not to dump on lawyers, they deserve to get paid, but the system is its own kind of system, and I really prefer the legislative system and the administrative system. So, but the court cases, wow. The Davis ruling would prohibit the government of Guam from conducting a native inhabitant vote. If the ruling stands, which it will if the Supreme Court refuses to hear it, then the governor would be constrained from any further effort to conduct a native inhabitant election. That's the true risk. And it may also, as the Attorney General has pointed out, it may also, every place where that concept is working within the government of Guam, it would automatically strike it down. Right now, it's only what the Ninth Circuit has said. But you take it forward, and the Supreme Court, if they refuse to hear it and say, nah, that's good enough just where it's at, then it's the same as the Supreme Court ruling. You've gotta really pay attention to that stuff. And then when the governor and the delegate disagree, Mike Nicholas carves out an electorate for himself on the issue, so it becomes a polarizing campaign issue rather than a strategic element in the community's evolution. The native inhabitant vote is important to native inhabitants and the descendants, because we've been talking about this for decades. Before the people who don't want the native inhabitant vote even moved here. That's the problem, because we've been talking about this for 40, 50 years, 60 years. And with the passage of time, it does not appear to be going away, but we are radicalizing younger generations who have found that their parents and grandparents have been denied this. It's not going away. It's a matter of dignity. Now, it may not be in conformance with the law, but believe me, if this was held back in the 50s, it wouldn't have been a problem, because native inhabitants were the majority. But of course, you couldn't do this in a time of the expansion of worldwide communism. So anyway, going back to Mike Nicholas saying that he wants a vote by every, which also would happen anyway. It's not like it's the only vote. Anyway, to me, this is Mike Nicholas jumping up and saying this is crass cynicism. Crass cynicism. To redirect any community conversation to become simplistic for or against, black or white, Mike Nicholas versus Lou. It's not that simple. But he just appropriated the issue to himself. And it is just the kind of politics that does not improve this community. It does not help at all to appropriate issues for your own campaign. Senator seeks answers to FBI allegations. Right? That was on Sunday, Guam Daily Post. The Legislative Oversight Chair of the Justice Committee has pushed for answers from the judiciary of Guam following testimony from an FBI agent that marshals at the court were involved in indicted Joint Mayor Jesse Bloss's alleged dealings. Senator Therese Talahi said, quote, "Our community's safety is dependent on trustworthy law enforcement officers. The statements by the FBI indirectly implicating court employees must be swiftly addressed if we are to ensure safety and restore trust." The judiciary provided a copy of its rules for investigating complaints against employees and confirmed it had received complaints regarding its court martials over the last 2 years. And in a confidential letter, the Chief Justice responded to numerous questions surrounding alleged wrongdoing, and Terlahi shared this letter with the Guam Daily Post. The judiciary reported that it had not been notified of any formal investigation of its marshals by the FBI or the Guam Police Department in connection with the federal case involving Bloss. And so Terlahi had asked if there had been any efforts by the judiciary to contact witnesses who may be able to shed further light on allegations the FBI made during Bloss's arraignment. And the Chief Justice answered yes, and that the judiciary takes allegations of misconduct very seriously and will fully cooperate with any investigation conducted by outside entities. So Senator Talahi says, without further details up front from the FBI, such as who or when, it may be challenging for the judiciary to conduct an internal investigation, but I look forward to the promised updates. And it goes on through. Terlahi requested a list of active warrants for females and other lists for males since January, indicating the length of time the warrant was active. Da 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 da. I am surprised that this would be that she would do this, and I'll tell you why. A senator who is elected to, consider policy, whether it's policy that's already in the books or new policies that we may need, and the budget for various activities of the government on an annual basis. How is she involved in law enforcement investigation? Why is she sticking her fingers in that process? Would it help at all? I mean, is she party to the process? Like a judge being, a judge could be a party to the process in the legislature because the legislature conducts public hearings and collects information on the effectiveness of the laws. And that's the process. It's an open process. Not so in the court. Not so in investigations in the executive branch, with the federal FBI or Guam Police Department. Now, if there's a problem with our laws, and Senator Therese Terlahi, thinks that there's a problem with the laws, if it's related to their legislative duty, I think this came up was cited in the response of President Trump to a request for information from the Congress. If it is not related to her legislative duty, if there's not something where we're trying to find out whether our laws are sufficient because they're hindering investigation, then why is she involved in it? Why would she try to get herself in the middle and uncover information in an active investigation? She should let law enforcement, investigation, and criminal justice processes proceed without political influence. She is a political figure. But how is this interference? Political interference. How is it interference? Maybe you don't want Jonia voters on the jury for the mayor. But when a senator wants to prematurely open up the investigation file, she's representing Guam voters from all the precincts. So she's poisoning the jury pool? Or she seeks to uncover information about sexual harassment by court martials? How is that going to help the enforcement of existing law on those officers? Now, if she wants to find out how law enforcement officers are able to become exempt from the law, that may have to wait until afterwards, so that we can tighten up our laws and require them to be considered, if they break laws, just as any other citizen is considered, and not to be given some kind of special dispensation for being a law enforcement officer. But that just bothers me that this would be that she would do this. I mean, it bothered me that she was even considering becoming an attorney assisting in the case for Supreme Court appeal of the Davis case. That was something. Real Joe, let's take a break here, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about Senator James Moylan's Bill 217-35 on commercial drone industry for Guam is pushed.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the all-new Pit Smoked Brisket. How would you like it?
I'll take a man who knows what's what.
Y'all know what? The all-new Pit Smoked Brisket at Subway is smoked slower than a slug going up a down escalator, that's what. I'm talking tender, juicy brisket, naturally pit smoked for at least 13 hours. What's more, it's got layer after layer of smoky flavor. Smoked cheddar and barbecue sauce on delicious Italian bread. Subway, make it what y'all want, what not. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. We've got about 10 more minutes together here. I'm going to take a look now at Bill 217-35, which was filed on October 9th by Senator James Moylan, an act to relative to creating a qualifying certificate for the enticement and potential establishment of a commercial drone industry on Guam. And it goes through and talks about how drones are becoming something of the, part of the future. And it says, this legislation does not dictate the benefits to be offered to investors. Rather, it includes a new industry into the matrix of qualified trades for available incentives that can help establish additional economic activity on island. And further, by allowing such industries to apply for incentives may allow local companies to either invest in such ventures or seek outside entities to do the same. The greatest marketing tool to help manifest new industries on Guam would be the commerce community on Guam. That's a direct quote from the bill. Not the part that really matters. It's Section 2 of the bill is the Section 58104, paragraph R, is hereby added to Chapter 58, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, to read as follows. R, commercial drone industry, and then it goes through. For purposes of this chapter, they're defined. And then number 2, the commercial drone industry shall encompass the research, development, training, education, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, or the utilization of commercial drones conducted on Guam, nationally or internationally. So Senator Moylan is proposing that if you have a company that wants to use commercial drones, or use drones in a commercial sense, that you would qualify for QC. Now, is there a particular public purpose behind this? This particular industry that it would spur. I mean, it's one thing to say we want to manufacture them here, although manufacturing is done we don't have a large manufacturing base where it becomes pretty easy to just in the next warehouse set up a manufacturing zone, manufacturing of something, because you're in a zone. But it goes on, number 3, R3, that benefits awarded by GITA shall only be utilized on direct business activity associated with the use of commercial drones. So this is not even talking about manufacturing. They define the industry, but the QC goes to those who use commercial drones. And then the beneficiary shall conform to all local and federal laws and regulations associated with the use of commercial drones. Not talking about manufacturing anymore. Just flat out using commercial drones qualifies you for a QC. This is special interest legislation, folks. He's got somebody in mind because it's not intended to benefit an industry, but it is intended to provide a tax incentive. A qualifying certificate is a tax abatement, a tax holiday. They don't have to pay taxes if they're going to set up a company that uses drones for commercial purposes. Reading the bill, that's what it says. It's all there. And I just, for those of you who are big fans of Senator James Moylan and would like to have him come in here and talk face-to-face with me, I still have another one. Might be good. It might be real good. I still have his Bill 175-35 on reorganization that we can talk about. We could say, okay, how is it that your bill is going to be an improvement on the current law? Why should we wait until your bill is passed to reorganize the government? What is the deficiency of our current law? And I'd be really happy to just, right here on the radio, talk to him in front of everybody.
Face to face with Daryl Taggarty.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not because he's researched this deeper than I have. He should be able to run circles around me and explain just what he's doing. I'll ask some questions, but I'm certainly in a position to be convinced. So let's see. James Howard says, use the drones to patrol the villages. Sure, but do we need to have... Is it necessary to have a QC? Because anyway, if it was patrolling the villages on a commercial basis, what's the company that would benefit by patrolling the villages? Unless it was somebody who was working under a government contract. Right, James? Isn't that so? Who would want to patrol villages for commercial purposes? Unless it's, drug delivery, what? What's the, or to see where the police are and to sell that information to lawbreakers so they know that the police are over there and they can hit somebody over here. That's a commercial use. I mean, it's an illegal commercial use, but it's a moneymaker. And the government, no, not the government, taxpayers would underwrite the cost of that company. They don't have to pay taxes because they got commercial drones. Any company that's got commercial drones using it will qualify for the QC. How many companies are going to run out and get a commercial drone license and augment their, what? They're going to be, how about pizza delivery? It's going to be the Domino's pizza delivery. And we'll be driving down Marine Drive and we'll have a parade of drones overhead carrying pizza boxes. Or a Grubhub, coming out of a drone will arrive at Mescla and it'll run 2 meals all the way up to me in Jigo. Hey, don't have to, pharmacies. Oh yeah, just drop that morphine in the basket and bring it to me over at my house. Here's my prescription. Maybe he's got something there, but doesn't need to have government assistance to get it going. Is it that marginal? Is it going to generate the kind of jobs and we're going to have 50 people flying drones, doing 50 people per shift, and that the government should because of the amount of activity that 50 people are going to be employed around the clock. Do you think that that's going to be a good reason to for the people of Guam to not require the company to pay taxes, like a hotel? Yeah, keep that music coming. It's 5:59. It's time for me to go. I'll be back tomorrow at 4. So tune in. Oh, Amazon. James Howard says Amazon. Yeah, I like them. You know, they really know how to pull that bow back. Thanks for tuning in to Tall Tales this afternoon and for enjoying the news with me. I'll see you again tomorrow afternoon. Don't forget, Ray Gibson's here in this very chair tomorrow morning at 6. Have a good evening, everyone.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Explosive testimony on Capitol Hill. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
In my 10 short months in Congress, it's not even noon, right? And this is my most disturbing day in Congress so far.
Democratic Congressman Andy Levin reacting to yesterday's impeachment inquiry testimony by acting U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor.
Sources familiar with the closed-door session tell Fox News that Taylor told congressional investigators there were 2 channels for policymaking on Ukraine, one regular and one highly irregular. Taylor, who described himself as a career diplomat, said the regular channel went through traditional State Department avenues, and the irregular channel went through the president's people, naming Ambassador Gordon Sondland, former special envoy Kurt Volker, the president's personal